Hi there,
Ready?
Nathan. This is
Yeah, great.
part two of our podcast. Now, I'm the host. I'm David Stanley. I host the Spiritual Journey on YouTube since about 2019, really, and that was the time a lot of things happened. Now, I mentioned in part one that I voted no for flat Earths in a group, on Facebook, and that was 10 years ago. Now, at the same time, I went on to study Michelson and Morley experiment, and I was all lit up about this um, and many other different things. I mean, you know the one I'm talking about, the experiment,
Mhm.
yeah. And also, they did the same experiment and got better results 100 years later. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of
Yep.
the things.
And there's a quote by Einstein. I'll pull it up because I actually have it right here saved. I had to talk about this a week ago with that PhD astrophysicist. He thought a ball swinging on a string, called a pendulum, it's actually a tool for hypnosis. If you Google, can a pendulum be used to hypnotize people? He thought that proved the shape of the earth. So I had to show him.
That's what I say to people. I say, look, when you're looking at that thing, because they always bring it up, I say it's there to hypnotize you.
Also, it's fixed to the ground inside of a building, and they'll claim that the atmosphere moves with the earth and everything. But all of a sudden, you start swinging a device used to put people in a hypnosis, and that the earth is going to move under that, but nothing else. I mean, give me a break. And it says right here on in regards to Michelson Moreland, Einstein said, I came to know the strange result of Michelson's experiment. This was the first path which led me to special theory relativity, which is just assuming a constant speed of light and everything works around that framework, which has never been proven. Since then, I have come to believe that the motion of the Earth cannot be detected by any optical experiment through the Earth revolving around the sun, though the Earth is revolving around the sun. He
Yeah,
believed it. He thought it was true. He promoted that theory, but these people knew the lie. I mean, he was part of the club, and I think Einstein wasn't. I mean,
yeah.
I'm
Well,
convinced. I'm convinced that he was.
if you tell that to a religious glober, they will hate you forever. Yes.
Yeah, well, I would say every glober is religious, but I think you mean like a Christian glober or an Islamic glober, or what do you mean?
No, religious to the scientism.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There
When they
it
cling
it
to
is.
their scientism beliefs. Yes.
It is the only religion actually that says the Earth is a globe. Is the globe religion? All the other religions, except that the Earth is under a firmament dome, doesn't move, and is flat. So that's gone
Yeah.
back to antiquity. So, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm all ready to talk about the sun and the moon, David. I got some
Great.
notes ready. I can even share screen if you want me to show your audience some of the stuff I'm talking about. But
Yeah, I'd
uh,
love it. Yeah, if you can do that. Yeah.
excellent. Yeah. So go ahead. Was there a specific question you wanted to ask me about the sun and the moon? You just want me to talk about it?
Well, there are just so many things that we could talk about, but we've only got like half an hour. Um, so here's one thing. If the sun and the moon could prove flat Earth, what would be the best indisputable argument for that?
That's a good question. What would be the best? Um, I would say actually, because whenever I try to prove flat Earth, I use the Earth, David, and I think the only way to use the sun or the moon in regards to the shape of the Earth, and this is very clever, is by the law of reflection. Now, when you want a mirror image of something or a specular reflection, you need a completely flat surface so that the angle of the light coming in, they call this the incident angle, meets the reflected angle. And that gives your eyes the perception of a perfect mirror image reflecting off the surface of the water. And the way the sun sets over the surface of the earth, I think can only be demonstrated, can only be duplicated on a flat surface. When you try to get what we see in nature with the path of the sun, light reflecting off of the water directly towards your toes, and you start bending the surface of that water or whatever it is reflecting, you get massive amounts of distortion compared to what we see, and you don't get the same shape of the sunlight coming across the water. And so if we had to prove the shape of the earth using the sun, I would use reflections off of the water, because it can only be demonstrated on a flat earth. Now, I will say that it's easier to falsify the globe than it is to prove flat earth. So I could give you 8 examples with the sun and the moon that falsify the globe, that prove what they're telling us about the globe is not real regarding the sun and the moon. And I've sent a request to share screen, and I'll show you a couple of those real quick. For example, if the sun is 93 million miles away and you flip a solar filter on your camera,
Hang
and
on.
then
Let's say allegedly 93 million miles.
Yeah, allegedly 93. That's changed 15 times on the globe religion. What's nice is the globe religion's constantly morphing. It's like an evolving religion. We don't have claims about the distance to the sun. I don't even think it's a physical object. I think it's an apparent object in the sky that's projected from the firmament dome. But we'll watch this video real quick. You can see the size of the sun at first. It was roughly the size of a dime, maybe bigger. And then when it gets to the horizon, it's about a pea size. So it goes from massive to about the size of a pea in this time lapse. And globers will say this doesn't happen. I mean, I had a glober on TikTok yesterday say, if the earth was flat, the apparent size of the sun would change at sunset. He doesn't know that even on the globe, if you Google it, it says that it will get bigger sometimes due to atmospheric conditions. But when you eliminate the atmosphere, like this was 5,000 feet above sea level, you can really see more clearly than you do way down in the atmos, because the atmos is doing something called attenuation. The light is absorbed or reflected depending on the composition of that air and the density levels of that composition. So different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum are affected by different gaseous particles in the air, for example. But the 4 main things that affect visible light are going to be water vapor, oxygen, ozone, and carbon dioxide. And so keep that in mind when you're making your observations. But yeah, you get the sun shrinking, and then it gets even better, David.
Hang on,
let me show you.
Just let me say that about that brilliant video. Where it does shrink and you can see it now, globers will shrug it off. Doesn't matter.
They'll say it doesn't happen, and they'll send us a video they took, and then we measure the pixels in the video, and their suns change angular size. I mean, they are off the rails, David. That's why we just gotta. The Bible says, in the end times, when people reject the truth, dust your feet, because it'll be better in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah than for those people. So here actually is the moon doing the exact same thing. I started a time lapse because I thought this was Venus. I was 3,000 feet above Denver, the mile-high city, so I must have been 9,000 feet in the air. And I'm looking off in the distance right as it's getting dark, and I see a dot that looked like Venus. I'm like, man, I'm going to start taking a time lapse. This thing looks crazy. It's the biggest I've ever seen Venus. And then, holy moly, it's coming right for us. The moon just gets bigger and bigger and bigger in the time lapse, just like the sun got bigger or smaller and smaller and smaller as it went away. The moon here is appearing to get bigger and bigger as it's coming towards me. And I've had 100 globers tell me 2 of the funniest things about this image. First of all, they said that this was the sun. And I had to inform them that you don't have the city lights and headlights on underneath the picture, the bottom, during the day, guys. You can't see city lights during the day. And then it gets darker as it comes towards you. So obviously that can't be the sun. And then they told me I should have used a solar filter for this. Breaking news, I can't use my ND 100,000 solar filter to look at the moon. It's not bright enough, it disappears. So these globers have completely lost the plot. You can't use a solar filter on the moon. You can't see it. And so I think those are just 2 easy examples. Another one I like to cover is right here, David. It's the eclipse and the path of the eclipse and how that just does not.
Got anything on the Stellarian eclipse?
Personally, other than the fact it would be, which is why it's called the impossible eclipse, impossible on the heliocentric model. You're right. That's another great evidence using the sun and the moon that the heliocentric model is wrong, because if you line up the sun, the moon, the earth, you cannot have an observer on one side of the globe looking at the sun and simultaneously looking through the earth to the other side of the earth and looking at the moon. So, and
With
then
the
the
shadow,
eclipse,
with the
what they
shadow in the wrong direction. Yeah.
it goes the wrong direction. It's the wrong color. Shadows are supposed to be dark, not glowing purple, orange, and red. You can see that it comes in from the top. Sometimes it should come in from the bottom. And there's just a million problems with the eclipses, right? But here is the, if you go to the Solar Walk software, yeah, on the day of this eclipse, it goes from Oregon to South Carolina. That's just the reality. And the path of the shadow is approximately 80 to 100 miles wide. Now, if you line up Solar Walk software and you go to the day of the eclipse and you press play, watch this. When we go forward in time, according to the European Space Agency's Solar Walk software explaining everything on your heliocentric model and how it would work, not only do you see a problem with the size of the shadow, it would be roughly the size of the United States. But you see another problem with the shadow. It goes the wrong direction. Now we're going to go forward in time right here with this little slide bar on the right. And our pictures are blocking that part of the screen, but it's going forward in time and it goes the wrong direction. It goes from South Carolina to Oregon. Now, the only way to make it go the right direction is to go backwards in time. So I always say they have to moonwalk the earth backwards because their globe religion is bad. It's bad. You know it. I think that's a funny joke. So that's another evidence I keep in my keynote speech. And then I'll show you some more evidences from my phone. You've got something called the green flash with the sun, and that's where the visible light spectrum gets separated by the atmosphere, and you start to see the different colors of visible light. And when you look at the separation of colors through a prism, the only way to mimic what we're seeing in reality is with the sun above the horizon, because when it's below the horizon, if you look at the Pink Floyd album, it has the light coming from below the horizon. Hey, teachers, leave those kids alone. It separates the green below the red, orange, yellow, right? But when you have the light coming from above the prism, or what we're going to use as our atmosphere, works like a prism. It's called atmospheric lensing. And so the colors with the green are on top of the red, the orange, the yellow. And well, what do we see in reality? The green flash is on top of the sun, proving that even though the sun, this is actually a pretty good proof for flat Earth. It cannot work on a globe, because if you had the light coming in, like their globe says, from this direction through the atmosphere and then being perceived by you on the surface, the first colors to bend would be that red, orange, yellow. The red, or sorry, the purple and the green. The red travels further through the atmosphere. It's attenuated less and it's less refracted. So that's why it would appear below on the globe. But same thing on the flat Earth, right? As the sun comes through the air, the purple and the green are refracted or bent first, and you see those colors on top of the red, orange, yellow. That would actually be a really good secondary proof for flat Earth, but just completely destroys the heliocentric model. And then I would talk about the cold moonlight. This is one of the first things I tested. You go to the hardware store and you get a handy dandy laser thermometer. Or let me show you one of the videos from my keynote, because I get to talk about my keynote, or sorry, my thumb drive. One of the video clips I have in here is cold moonlight, and it's actually a glober, Ken Wheeler, or no, not Ken Wheeler, the Mr. Magnetism on YouTube. And he had a $4,000 FLIR, and he used a $4,000 FLIR, not even a flat earther, guys. Just wanted to prove to his audience that this was what happens with moonlight. And we'll listen.
Okay, here's a video a lot of people wanted me to make. Sounds really crazy. I'm using a FLIR, forward-looking infrared device, and it is an extremely clear night with a extremely bright full moon. There goes a car down the road. Huh? You can actually still see the brakes on my
Are you playing the video?
So,
oh, you can't see it? Oh,
no.
Yes, I'm just sharing from, hold on, stop share. And then I'm going to go to a new share screen, desktop.
I mean, I know who you're talking about. I do watch his stuff. He's
excellent.
He's so intelligent.
Yeah? He's one of the most brilliant globers I've ever come across, but his arguments for the globe are some of the dumbest that I've ever heard. So I don't know what's going on there.
Well, I've heard him say that the Earth is flat, but he doesn't advertise it because he wants to keep his audience. Yeah.
Well, he's debated me in the chat when I was in the chat saying, you know, that satellites prove a globe and stuff. So I don't know if he's just got to push the narrative because he wants his channel to be popular, but it is popular. And, you know,
yeah,
I don't know. I think it's more important to tell people the truth than be popular. So, all right, here we go.
Full moon, and we've got a shadow. So let's do in the light of the full moon, 16 degrees Fahrenheit, 16 degrees Fahrenheit, 13, 12, 12. Yeah, okay. Here we are in the shadow. You can't see the shadow, but I am absolutely pointing it in the shadow. 22 degrees average.
22.8. So that's a great video. I don't want to spend too much time on it. Another way we could use the sun to prove the shape of the Earth is that the sun goes behind the Canigou Mountains, and we can see this from, what is it, 175 miles, guys. So the entire top of those mountains should be obstructed by the curvature of the non-existent, negligent, you know, doesn't show up for its assignment curve of the Earth. So that's another great way to prove the shape of the Earth using the sun and the moon. I'll play this video real quick. It shows the sun even without a solar filter shrinking into a little dot. And then what's crazy, David, in this video is if you put a piece of tape or a ruler up to this horizon, which is flat, you'll see the sun disappears above the horizon in this video, which I just think is so fascinating because I've done time lapses of a marine horizon with the stars, and the stars actually don't intersect the marine horizon. They vanish and fade away off in the distance above the marine horizon, just like they would on a flat Earth. So, and then I got a couple more proofs using the sun and the moon. You could do crepuscular rays, and this can be demonstrated using three things. You have three constituent parts. If I was a director on a set and I needed my stage guy to go recreate crepuscular rays on the stage, he would need a local light illumination, some sort of, you can't put the light really far away because then the rays from the light will come in parallel. So you need local light illumination. Then you need some sort of obstruction in the atmosphere. That's the clouds. And then you would need a third thing, some sort of particulates in the air acting like a screen that picks up the light so it's visible to your eyes. If there's nothing there, you're not going to see the path of the rays. And when you look at the path of the sun rays, they form a perfect triangle up above the clouds. So you got big problems with the heliocentric model. On top of that, local light illumination from the moon and the sun. When the sun sets, it's supposed to be bigger than the Earth. So that light should illuminate, would cause the silver lining on every cloud on the horizon in that direction of the sunset when you're viewing it, because it's 1,000 times bigger than the Earth. But when the sun sets, it's like you're driving into Vegas. It's just a little bit of the horizon is illuminated off in the distance, a little bit of a silver lining around the clouds. And it's even worse and more observable at night with the moon, because the moon's supposed to be 250,000 miles away, a ball, and it's supposed to be reflecting light in all directions. And that just gives you a little tiny local light illumination. Sometimes it's like a laser beam around just, you know, you take the moon size of the moon, you go over 3 moons, and you go to the right 3 moons. It's like, that's how much of the clouds are lit up when it should be going in all, it should cover the entire United States clouds, the moonlight, intensely, or at least the same intensity that we're getting it above our heads. So that's another big problem with it. And the moon produces magnitudes more gamma than the sunlight, and they claim that the moon is reflected sunlight. So it's impossible for the sunlight to hit the moon, and then the moon just magnify and multiply the gamma rays 3 times so that it produces more gamma. That's crazy. So
okay, well, let me put my Glover glasses on. I used to teach like this as well when I was teaching English. Now, you know that the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon. Yes? Now, how do you know that? And 400 times further away. But they both appear the same size in the sky, but mathematically it all works out. We know the math. Therefore, it's a, well, plain to see.
Yeah, there's another big coincidence too. If you look at the diameter of the moon, it's 2160, which here's a coincidence. That's 6 times 6 times 60. Then you look at the Earth's circumference in nautical miles, not statute miles, it's 21,600 nautical miles. So that's 6 times 6 times 600. And so the Earth is coincidentally in circumference 10 times the diameter of the moon, which are both 6 times 6 times 6 something. And the moon is coincidentally the apparent size of the sun, even though it's 400 times smaller and 400 times further away. Like, riveting. I just love all the coincidences in the globe religion. You can have your cake and eat it too on the globe.
Well, would you call that an appeal to possibility fallacy? The fact that
I will say that the fact that there's all these weird numbers doesn't prove the globe is wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying with a critical mind, there are way too many 666s, the speed of light, your Newton discovered gravity, the gravitational constant, the tilt of the Earth, the speed of the Earth around the sun, the curve of the Earth. They're all 666s, guys. So if you just want to keep believing that, even though it's been falsified, we see too far, it doesn't curve 0.666 feet. But you're right. The numbers, the gematria doesn't prove flat Earth. It doesn't falsify the globe. I just think it's important to point out because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. But this 400 times bigger, that to me sounds like appealing to possibility. Yes, a possibility fallacy, in fact.
One I failed to mention would be actually the sun's analemma. When they model this in Dubai, the billionaires spend millions of dollars to put the observer in a dome, and then they move the sun's path above the towards the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn in that dome, and it gives the illusion of a figure 8 pattern. The sun's analemma being smaller in the north, larger in the south, which I have not seen demonstrated on a globe ever. I don't think that would ever happen. I don't think it makes sense. So the sun's analemma, yeah, the wheel in the sky keeps on turning.
Yeah. Well, talking about the sun and the moon, do you think we'll ever be able to independently video a rocket landing on the moon?
No.
Independently, yes.
They're not even trying to land on the moon anymore, David. They're just going to fly by. They're going to do a little drive-by now. It's like, but rocket launches are parabolic, and you look at chemtrails and they're straight lines. Globers say the rocket's making a parabolic arc because it's going around the curve of the Earth. So they're flying sideways and then down to get into outer space, and they always do it near water. And they have something called a NASA graveyard. Jeff Bezos admits he tried to go get the Saturn rocket off 10,000 feet off the ocean floor because they have a graveyard out there. So it's a total joke. I'm not buying it. NASA means to deceive in Hebrew, and we got to test all things and hold fast to that which is true.
Yeah, their whole story is full of nassholes.
Nassholes and moony laundering. They're moony laundering.
Mooning laundry.
You heard that one here first. I got that from my friend Jen. I thought that was hilarious.
I'll try to wrap my head around that. Mooning laundry.
Yep, moony laundering.
Moon laundering. Okay. So basically, all we need to know is, can we measure the Earth to be flat to know that we're not living on a ball? Yes.
Yep, of course. Not just do we measure it, but we fly like the Earth is flat. We train pilots like the Earth is flat. We use communication and long distance microwave repeaters like the Earth is flat. They do radar and search and rescue like the Earth is flat. They navigated for thousands of years, celestial navigating like the Earth is flat. They do astroarchaeology, lining up giant megalithic structures, assuming that the sky is going to be a map and a clock. So the heliocentric model is just a vain religious superstition at this point. That's why I think it's our job to shout it from the rooftops. The truth really doesn't need defending. It just needs people that are strong enough in their conviction to tell other people, and then you let them figure it out. I always say professionals sort, but amateurs try to convince. And that's what I do. I just go around sharing the good news. I don't care if they get it or not. It's not my job to get it for them. I don't know how thick the scales are on their eyes or where the creator has them at this point in their life, right? But if they have eyes to see and ears to hear, sometimes people call me a couple of days later and don't argue, don't have any questions, and just say, thanks, Nathan. I didn't know it was in the Bible. I'm like, you're welcome. Good to know. There's people like you out there. So.
Right. Can you think of any more moon proofs?
Let me go to my moon folder actually and just see what I can pull up if there's anything I missed. I separate all my proofs by folders. So I got an eclipse, I got maps, I got dome, I got stars, I got light, and I have so many that sometimes I'll just like skip it or get lost. There it is right there. Oh yeah, you can't land on the moon in a homeless tweaker shelter, guys. You can't build something with shower curtain rods, aluminum foil, and cardboard, and then blast off the Earth to the moon. This is stupid, guys. So I just want you to know that's also the moon would get brighter the closer you got to it, and apparently here it's just like a dark, dimly lit gray sand, even though it completely illuminates the Earth from 230,000 miles away when it's a full moon above your head. Like, and you can walk around at night like it's almost daytime, as far as how clear you can see things on the floor. Another great one is when you look at the moon with forward-looking infrared, it produces a flat top beam profile as opposed to a Gaussian profile of light, which, David, check this out. If you look at the Gaussian profile of light, right, what does this look like to you? You ever see these driving down the road, on the side of the road? What do these look like?
Bollards.
I don't know if you have them out in where you're from, but in America, they use these as construction cones to like maneuver traffic.
Yeah, we call them bollards.
They're called, in America, construction cones, David. And if light, the creator is light, and he constructed this entire universe, I just find it interesting that the Gaussian profile of light, when graphed out like this, looks exactly like a construction cone. I find that's, I want to get these printed up in like little silicon things, and then you can have them as keychain danglers or stuff, little conversation pieces. But I think that's funny.
The building blocks of creation. Yeah.
But yeah, when you look at the Gaussian profile of light coming straight at you, not graphed, you get the image right over here on this side, and it's a laser beam, and you get really intense light in the center, and then it fades away exponentially. It's called a Gaussian curve. But with a flat top beam profile, look at the example for a flat top beam profile on Wikipedia, and then I'll go back and I'll show you the moon, which is just a spitting image of a flat top beam profile. That's the forward-looking infrared looking at the moon.
So that would mean nothing to a lot of people, but it's something to look into. You know,
of course,
how we can use infrared.
Yeah, and then also we've got here, it says in this book on perspective, any three-dimensional object, unless it's totally bathed in light from multiple sources, is going to have a shaded side, and it's also going to have a specular highlight. And the moon, if it's lit up by the sun, would have a specular highlight. It is not lit up by the moon or the sun. It produces its own light, in my opinion, measurably cold. Also, another fascinating thing I'll show you real quick. I found this video on how silicon is developed, and it looks just like a moon crater, and then it fills up on its own, which could be why the shadows on the moon disappear as the moon starts to go through its phases. And you look at the properties of silicon. When voltage is applied, energy can be produced. So if you think of the moon, like, you ever see those watches that you can move and that they don't need a battery, David? You just got to keep them in constant motion, and the piezoelectric energy is harvested through a crystal in there every time you move. Yeah. And so think about the moon sliding across the firmament. It could be charging up and then releasing the charge, working like a closed loop system, no energy loss, no energy gain. And if I was the creator and I was as smart as he was, I would make the earth as hands-off as possible. I don't need the earth draining energy from heaven for some reason. I mean, you could just make it totally self-sustaining And so that's what I'm trying to figure out, is how we can model it, how we can prove it's false, how we can demonstrate all of our claims, and then also like how could this possibly work? And yeah, they use silicon wafers in a lot of technology. The silicon is just fascinating. You look at how it's made. You can make it in an arc welding furnace, and you need super hot temperatures, which is what we see through the forward-looking infrared, super hot temperatures. And then you need two things. You need oxygen and carbon. And so if it has those two things, you can make quartz. And I don't know. I just have a theory that could be one of the things going on. I can't prove it, but I think it's fascinating enough to talk about it.
That brings up a subject, the map of the moon. Yes, that there is actually a map of Earth, the flat Earth, on the moon, and when every time you look at the face of the moon, yes, and you think it's a face, it's actually a like a photo image of flat Earth. Now,
I would say,
hang on. I was told back in 1980 that the moon wasn't a rock in space, but it was like a plasma, and those craters, they were like bubbles rather than
yes,
craters. Yeah. Now that was in 1980, and I was also told at the same time, because I was doing astrology studies, yeah, and I was told at the same time that the sun is cool, it's not hot, yeah. And I was blown away, and I believed it. I thought, yeah, that makes so much sense.
well, it doesn't even need to be cool. It just could be neutral, but the sun's light is warming up physical matter, and then that heat travels up through convection. So I mean, you can't actually measure a beam of sunlight to be hot until it comes in contact with gross physical matter. And so yeah, I don't think the sun, and then when you get closer to an object emitting heat, it gets hotter, David. And what happens when you go up to the top of Mount Everest? It gets colder, David. So obviously there's problems with what they're telling us, in my opinion. And then they even claim that when we're in the winter, we're 3 million miles away closer to the sun, but it's actually the tilt of the earth. And then when we're in the summer, we're 3 million miles away further than the sun, but it's the tilt of the earth. And it's just so fantastical. It's so imaginary. It's so ridiculous that I love
just believe me, bro.
Yeah, I know. That's why I love screaming flat earth from the rooftops. It's easier to debunk than evolution. We don't have to talk about bird beaks for 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, as bad as it may sound, when I see a glober gashing in their teeth with the contradiction, I kind of smile inside. Yeah. Whatever verbal garbage they come out with, I really smile. Now you did a debate not long ago with a guy who kept calling you darling. Yes.
Oh,
I've forgotten his name. But that same guy, I was in a Jevons group, and we were talking, and I posted a photo, and it was the sun behind Chicago, and he said this no, or Lake Michigan or something, yeah, and it was the sun, and it said there were some words and the photo, and he argued blind, given all the maths and everything, that this was a false photo. Yeah, that and everything. And in the end, I said to him, "Look, you don't understand that these things are two different things. There's the photography, the image you're seeing, and the words you're seeing. Yes, and you believe that the words are explaining the photograph when they're both explaining something to you, and they're explaining something different. And when he got it, he shut up.
Yeah, I mean, that's what happens all the time. They're like, tell me the proof for flat Earth, and I'll go through 10 proofs, and they're like, that could have been AI. And I'm like, what am I doing here, dude? So that's why you got to talk to people with eyes to see and ears to hear. Don't waste your time, guys. Don't waste your energy. Spend your energy with people you love, doing things you love, and just share the truth, here and there with everyone. Everyone deserves to know. And I find it fascinating that you could be the one or a cornerstone or a key point, like changes someone's lives and sends them on a completely different direction, because that's what happens when you find out the earth is flat.
Right. And like you say, you found God really when you found out the earth was flat?
Well, one of the reasons I didn't believe in God was because of the heliocentric model and how far away he would have to be. But one of the reasons I became a Christian, and one of the reasons I started really looking into it, was because the Bible was clearly not a globe book, but a flat earth book. So that was one of the things that fascinated me, inspired me, brought me to my knees, and then led me on this journey where I get to have a life of passion, and I don't have to sit in a cubicle. I don't got to wash dishes. I don't got to wear a paper hat and flip burgers. He had a better purpose for me. And the Bible says, if you seek him, you'll find him. And when I got fired from flipping burgers, I went to seek him, and I found Michael, and he taught me about the brain. And then I found flat earth and taught me about my purpose. And 10 years later, here I am, like super happy to be talking about flat earth with you, David. So I really appreciate it.
Well, it's funny that, because Michael is supposed to be the chief of the angels. Yes. So you were touched in a way. But funny you should talk about finding God, because someone once said to me when I was in the restaurant, he came up to me and he said, I'll give you £10 if you tell me your secret. I was kind of, what can I say to the guy? Yeah. And I sort of looked at him. He said, well, I respect you that you won't sell your secret for £10. Yes. But all these years later, yes, I've written a new book. Here it is, a phenomenal spiritual autobiography. And you can find out my secret, yeah, if you think it's a secret, probably for less than £10 for the ebook. Yes. And so
nice.
that guy who asked me all those years ago for my secret, yeah, here's the book. That resource.
That's cool.
Okay. And for anyone that doesn't believe in God, I suggest you read this too, because it's a witness and a proof. Yes. A phenomenal journey. Right. Have you got some last things to say about the sun, the moon, the earth? Okay. We got to leave it on a flat note, really flat note. And I think the best way to measure the flat earth.
The best way to measure, in my opinion, would definitely be the distance on surface to the horizon has to be based on the height of the observer. And that horizon would cause physical bottom-up obstruction of distant objects. So I don't know if you want to put the horizon at 1.2 miles for a 1 foot observer, go out 1 foot off the ground and falsify that claim. Or if you want to know that based on the geometry of the earth, the drop from a tangent is 0.666 feet. And past that horizon, things would start to disappear bottom up. You can calculate that bottom up disappearance using math. And when we go out in nature and we use telescopes and high power zoom cameras and infrared, or you get some binoculars, or you zoom in with a fancy iPhone, you will not see 66 feet of drop at 10 miles. The earth does not drop at all. Things are obstructed bottom up due to the atmosphere. You've got things in the foreground that can cause bottom up obstruction. You have lines of convergence, angular resolution limits. None of that is the curve of the earth.
And something that they don't teach you in school, learn about perspective. Yes. The way things shrink into the distance. Yes. That's got to be one of the most important things for a flat earther, perspective. So this is a flat note, is it?